Hello, everybody. Welcome to this ESTA LinkedIn Live. My name is David Bruno. I'm Associate Dean of Educational and Academic Partnerships here at Camden County College. I'd also like to introduce Shubber Ali. So Shubber, do you want to just do a quick intro of yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, David. So Shubber Ali, I'm the CEO of Omnic.ai, which is an analytics platform, obviously using AI, in the competitive gaming and esports space.
Fantastic. So we're excited to talk about really how there's a shift going on right now in how esports and AI and AI analytics are kind of meeting each other, especially here on the higher education side of things. Really, as esports continues to professionalize, colleges are really in that unique position, where it not just is where students are, find places to compete, but these colleges and universities really are becoming environments where this esports ecosystem is being built and being kind of tested, piloted, and even scaled as well too. So we're excited to talk about live performance data, not only how it affects competition, but also how it impacts the classroom, and more importantly, how it connects to our career pathways of tomorrow. On the intercollegiate side of things, we're using real-time analytics in a variety of ways, but it really becomes a new opportunity here with AI in terms of how teams can now change their preparation, change how they compete, how they evaluate talent. We can use live information, live dashboards to make in-game decisions. We can break down post-match performance immediately versus having to go through a VOD review like we used to do. And we're seeing this play out in a variety of different events. So today we're going to talk a little bit about a specific case in point, which is the Garden State Esports Collegiate Combine, where there was an opportunity to layer in real-time AI analytics to evaluate players really objectively. And I think that was really kind of the goal behind it, about what we did, where we could have added AI into it, and where those opportunities are for growth into the next event as we go forward. So really, ultimately, higher education has an opportunity here, really an opportunity to lead. Again, not just by preparing students to go into the esports industry, but really to develop out those skills related to analytics, the tools that are used, and really to build out a talent pipeline that will define the future of this industry as we go forward. So, Shubber, do you want to add anything else before I kind of kick off to what we're doing here in Jersey a little bit?
Yeah, you actually hit, and we'll come back to this during the conversation, but it's like the magic phrase VOD review, because to me, like that's one of the pain points I've heard the most talking to coaches in college and even high school esports. It's been, there are just not enough hours in the day to look at the data, and the problem is that there's too much data and there's only more and more being generated. And this is where AI and particularly in the use of analytics really can be a game changer, no pun intended, for these teams and these coaches and the players, to help them get from data, which there's a mountain of, to the insight that's hidden in the data, so that the coaches know like what to spend time focusing on with their player versus having to watch every single minute of every single frame of every single game, which there's just, again, at larger teams, it doesn't scale.
Yeah. And I think really from my end, from a college administrator standpoint, where do I best, see the return on the budget allocation regarding esports, and so if AI can play a role in terms of supporting our coaching opportunities, our players to develop, I think we're going down a very strong path for success, not only for how we as a college embrace and integrate and implement the programming, but also putting, again, students in a position to continue that growth. Again, utilizing the tools that they have now available, but also, again, building in those opportunities to learn and support it from an academic and an industry opportunity. It's exciting to kind of see it happen, kind of right before our eyes, Shubber. And again, I think this is kind of where our relationship. And again, I like to talk about it quickly, just because we met through one of these ESTA events, the Coffee Connections. We had a shared connection with our college background. We are both alum of the same university, Georgetown. And we just kind of hit it off in the sense of a shared vision of what this opportunity presents. So I do like to talk about where I think the industry needs to go. And I know, Shubber, you and I have talked about this a lot. Traditional sports has given us a roadmap here. Traditional sports, as we see it today and going forward, relies very heavily on analytics. Again, I know there's some, varying opinions across the board in every sport about how much of a role and, should teams and organizations rely on analytics for the decision making. And there's some that are full on in, and there's some that are just dabbling still with it. But I think this really kind of crosses into this esports sector significantly, because we have access to so much information, through the digital content that we're constantly providing on a regular basis, to utilize those data points, to hopefully make strong, informed decisions, as we go forward.
Yeah, I think that it's, well, I certainly accept that there are certain sports where people are pushing back a little bit on the use of it. There's nobody doubts the power of things like Moneyball, right? Which is the way we look at it from a data analytics point of view, is that this is, if any sport generated, information as a byproduct of what it does, there's no better one than esports, right? Because it literally is done on data machines that are creating this stuff all the time. But the rest of it is still very much like traditional sports, right? You have to be able to, communicate, work with your teammates, do all the rest of that. And so the degree which you can abstract out the data, and again, as I said before, find the insights in it so you can help them get better at being players and being teams and all the rest of that. That's where the power is, to say, what can I do to make the team a better team? Because if you can't find it in the data, then you can't fix it. You can't improve on it, right? You can only improve what you measure.
Absolutely. And I get excited just about the academic opportunities that analysis creates. We've talked a number of times about, really how this mapping, the tagging that needs to go into, into this analysis is opportunity for our students to not only play a role in that, but to learn the ins and out of the industry, the AI part of the industry, so that they are in a position with that skill set to, to really jump into careers that either directly connect with the sports industry, or again, those ones that transfer over, pretty seamlessly, be it through the audiovisual production side, cyber, you name it. There's a number of different industries where this skill set can have a positive impact on their career growth. So it's exciting to see.
Well, and that's why when we first met and we came up and visited, Camden, and actually saw your facility, which is amazing, by the way. For anybody who's in the area, you got to go see it. It's a really
Thank you.
pretty slick. Yeah, you guys did a great job building that place out. And what I really like about the program you all have built, not to segue too much, but it'll bring it back into it, is that you treat esports not as about playing games, which is certainly at the core of it. You have gaming, right? But it's all the stuff around it, which also can leverage things like real-time AI analytics, right? So for instance, you got the production studios and the shoutcasting and all that kind of stuff. Think about traditional sports. When you watch an NFL game or you listen to a NBA game or NCAA game on the radio, or you're watching on television, and those the broadcasters are just rattling off statistics, where do you think they get them from, right? It's all data, and being able to very quickly pull up the right insights or data and be able to then transfer that over to this sport and say, where is that repository of knowledge that can quickly be surfaced? Again, AI can help a lot with that. When you're doing a live event like the big tournaments and the rest, changes it from I to use a business analogy, from transaction to relationship. Here it changes it from I'm watching an event to I'm getting the context of everything around that as well. Like, the last time this guy played this particular operator, or a controller or whatever, the thing might be in let's say in Valorant, and they were a duelist, right? It's like they've always struggled with this yet, but they're doing it this time. And look, here's a really cool move they're doing. Now you can go back and reference the last time they did it at a different tournament. That becomes like a thing that makes it more interesting and engaging for the audience, which is also part of what needs to be built out to really make, esports even go further.
Yeah, and I think the scalability of this, and again, I'll kind of almost say like in a reverse scalability in the sense that, while it's great to have a number of different individuals supporting a production on a professional level, the reality of most college and or high school broadcasts is it might be one person or two people at most sitting behind those computers trying to put together the best stream as possible. So utilizing this live data really to help them inform those casting calls or the color aspects that go into the broadcast is really a game changer as we go forward. Again, it allows for that larger set of data to be used all throughout the competition, to create a fantastic broadcast. Whereas again, a couple of years ago, we just simply didn't have that information. We were just pulling stats from a game, and you saw a number or a percent there. But now we can use a variety of different pieces of information to really make that broadcast stand out.
Yep, and that even goes further. Sorry, I was going to say one more thing on that.
Sure.
Is and then we'll move on to slide 2. But the that actually even extends further. You go from collegiate all the way back down to high school, and you say, now you've got the data of a player who's been playing, maybe on their high school team for 3 years, and then they get recruited and they join, Camden or another school, and they're on the team there. And then during the chatcast, being able to in real time use it, and to pull up the stats, which is just an application of it, and say, since their rookie year, they've done this, 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 and this. That again adds color and commentary and things to the event that makes it more interesting for people to watch. But it also, it's another facet of this because it's more than just about the game itself. It's about all the things that wrap around it that will make this really, stick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm going to just spend a couple of slides very quickly just talking about kind of what's happening here in Jersey, and really where this opportunity that we are trying to kind of not only touch upon, but really meet and build on as we go forward. So, I'd like to talk about, what's happening here in Jersey, how it's grown. So the high school sector, Garden State Esports is really the leading provider of esports on the K through 12 level here in the state of New Jersey. It is the state recognized body at this point. A lot of recognition, not only with, I'll say the foundation of the organization, but also the coaches, the connection points that Garden State Esports has been able to, to create over the past several years. We saw this, from the higher ed side as an opportunity to really align ourselves, kind of directly with that leading provider, again, to create that vertical alignment, that pipeline of potential students coming into our programs here in Jersey. Again, our goal was, we wanted to train Jersey students to stay in Jersey and hopefully remain in Jersey, but without having that direct pipeline, it made it a little bit more difficult, a little bit fragmented. So we're talking about 400 schools in the state of New Jersey are participating in Garden State Esports. It's about 13,000 students that are participating in varsity level esports this current academic year. This is the largest STEM K through 12 workforce development initiative in the state of New Jersey. So there is a significant amount of involvement here in this state alone. On the higher ed side, again, of course, all of the schools that we deal with in Jersey are doing different things. We're in a variety of leagues. We might be in NJCAA with the 2 years, NACE, we have the PCL, NECC. Again, you name it, we're all kind of in a variety of leagues. But I think the one part that really stands out is we saw an opportunity, again, with Jersey being kind of a proximate state in the sense that we're about a 2-hour drive, from south to north and north to south, that we wanted to create a collegiate conference that stood out as an in-person travel league. So we started with about 5 colleges 2 years ago, and then really built into 25 colleges currently today with this collaboration with the school. So the idea was let's do this together as a unit. And I think by gelling us all together in some way, it really created an opportunity to share resource, to share these opportunities, which is where we're seeing the growth from really this combine and the AI integration of it. And again, I'd like to point to some of these demographics. Again, these are from Garden State Esports, and I point to this one specifically. Again, I'm not sure if you see my mouse moving or not, but it's the 75% of participants factor in a college's gaming, community, and esports program into their college decision-making process. So of that 13,000 students in the state of New Jersey competing, 75% of them are going to look at our programs and make a decision to potentially attend our college in some way based on the quality of our program in some way. So, and Shubber, this is where I saw opportunity. It's really how do we level up our program to the point where students saw this program here at Camden or at other institutions as better than, or as like elite in some way, and that's where I think this opportunity to layer in AI really kind of fits into this quite well. So again, any kind of reaction to some of this so far?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think if you'd asked 5 years ago, AI was like, people weren't even talking about it. Obviously now it's everywhere around us. But when I put on my previous hat, I spent, as many years as a partner at Accenture, doing a lot of digital transformation work with clients. And the biggest challenge, and I see this in the public sector as well, meaning individual people and students and all the rest, is that people know the term, but they don't know what it really means yet. Like, how do I make AI part of what I'm doing beyond just ChatGPT or Claude, right? It's like, what does it really mean? And so being able to show them how you can apply AI in something that they're passionate about, in this case, esports and gaming, and then say, and this is how you can get a skill in this area as well. Like you'd mentioned earlier, so I can go in a little bit more detail now, is labeling. So the very first step in training an AI in this area is actually teaching it what it's seeing on the screen, right? This is different than how the large language models work, because those are based on words. This is based on actually imagery, right? So think of it more like the computer vision in a self-driving car, where it's actually looking and seeing things. And so for all of you who have ever had to suffer through endless CAPTCHA, where you like identify the fire hydrant or the crosswalk or the motorcycle, whatever the thing is, you were helping to train AIs. You were helping right there to do that. That's a very simple way, but the more complex stuff we're doing using tools like CBAT, which IBM developed, which is a computer vision annotation tool, is where you actually then identify, like let's say in a game like Valorant, you would identify these are the agents, these are eliminations, these are the weapons, these are their health bars, this is your shield, this is you identify every single element on the screen in many, 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 many frames, and then the AI learns how to recognize, oh, that is KO, or that is Sage, or that is like depending on who the agent might be, or that is the Vandal as the weapon, and that is an assist versus that is an elimination, right? So it learns all of these things because we tell it what it is. That's the first step, but that's something that students then learn what computer vision and labeling means, because it's the first step in an AI journey.
Okay. And I think what you're talking about there speaks to kind of this next slide a little bit here. The reason I included this is what we've been able to do here at Camden. Again, while we built and internally here have the support for an esports intercollegiate program and an esports academic program, it really is the state's investment in the career opportunities that you just referenced, in terms of the data tagging, the training, that really helps us stand out and puts a little bit more support and oomph behind, really what this project and the discussion's about today. So a lot of our support from the state has come through our New Jersey Pathways Initiative. And just in kind of a quick summary here, the New Jersey Pathways to Career Opportunities initiative is kind of a joint effort between the New Jersey Community College Consortium for Workforce Economic Development, which is funded through the New Jersey Community College Council and the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, to identify emerging career pathways. So what we were able to do about 3 years ago was really identify esports, number one, as an emerging career pathway. Two, identify a variety of certifications, credentials that students could earn while experiencing, while participating, while supporting esports related activities. Again, those being things like Adobe Creative Cloud, talking about this AI integration as well too, as this all goes forward. Again, it's really about not only supporting the industry, but more importantly, supporting the career growth and the skill set growth of our students that are going through the academic elements here at these institutions while they're playing, while they're competing in it. So we're really seeing this intersection of academic opportunity with industry kind of taking shape. So we're excited to have this support from the state of New Jersey, from the New Jersey community colleges. It's only helped to kind of lend credence and open up these connection and networking opportunities that we've been able to establish. But kind of digging into this next slide here, and again, this is where I saw the opportunity. Go ahead, Shubber.
Sorry, before you go on, there was a question in the chat. I just wanted to ask the person who wrote it about the ability of AI to measure the amount of pure energy exerted by the players. Can you clarify, just put it in the chat as well, what you mean by pure energy? Because I just want to make sure we answer the question quickly. So while you're doing that, Dave, if you want to keep going, then we'll come back to the question.
Sure, yeah, sure, we'll do. Again, I saw the opportunity here is really, this esports intelligence engine. Again, this idea of, colleges creating talent pipelines, becoming these research labs, these research institutions that really apply the skill more than anything, and creating this competitive ecosystems. And really, I think what we're speaking to now here, Shubber, is really this shift from participation. Again, we've gone the way over the past couple of years of competing in leagues and competing in these league activities, to now seeing kind of this is a data-driven performance ecosystem. It's not about competing anymore. Now it's about leveling up, trying to put themselves in a position to be the best institution. No different from what we see on a collegiate football level, a collegiate basketball league. You got March Madness going on right now, Shubber, and you know as much as I do that the amount of analytics that's going into this data-driven performance, really is driving this industry more than anything.
Yeah, this is actually, again, I go back to the term Moneyball, because it is all about the data, right? It's not about getting the star home run slugger in baseball anymore. It's about somebody who can consistently get you the hits, the runs, et cetera, the RBIs, all that, to use the baseball analogy. But in this area, I think also it's connecting across that pyramid from K through 12 to college to pro, if they're staying in the esport itself, versus if they're staying in the industry, which is then the much broader range of skills that the people are going to develop beyond that, right? So like, we're not a team, we're not a game company, but we help teams, we help players get better, right? So there's lots of things you can do that are adjacent to the actual playing of esports that leverage, again, AI and analytics in our case, and in some other people's cases, specifically to intersect with the playing of these games and the esports, right?
Absolutely. And again, I figured let's kind of talk about where these applications kind of lie a little bit, kind of digging into it. So, and Shubber, you could probably speak to these a little bit more than I can in terms of, from the industry side of things. But what we've seen here, in terms of intercollegiate, league and competition-based activity is, opportunities to for conferences and leagues to incorporate this, having standardized metrics across teams, sharing data, all of those that go into it, creating competitive advantages for programs, broadcast and fan engagement. I think this is kind of what that comment is speaking to. It's really about kind of, understanding where the energy levels of our audiences are, and how do we provide the best product? Because ultimately, this is content consumption here. We're producing something hopefully that is going to, want people to come back and watch more of in some way. Again, no different from March Madness. Again, everybody wants the Cinderella story.
It's very addictive. I mean, in terms of watching, you just look at the viewership stats for esports, and my first exposure to that honestly was when I was blown away by it. But you and I have talked about this story. Is then 2 years ago during spring break, we went on a family trip, and the very first day, my son's like, "Hey, can we watch the World Counter-Strike competitions on Netflix?" And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
We were hooked every single day. We started a day by watching an hour of that competition because it was just so engaging. But there was a stadium with tens of thousands of people in it watching it live, right? So there's no question. There's very strong fan interest and engagement with it. Going back to like your middle section, though, you think about um, a lot of the things that are anecdotally still done today, and this is where esports is in some respects still behind more traditional sports, even though it's more data driven. It's ironically less data driven in a lot of these respects because it's still relying on gut feel and what do I just pick up by watching a VOD or anecdotally or
Mhm.
whatever the thing might be. But you look at, we have seen, because we measure this data on the teams that we work with and also on individual players, is how performance changes game to game. So when you played a certain number of games, you can see when they've warmed up and then when they're dropping off. And knowing where that spot is, and in each player, it's different. So you can't just blanket say, okay, play 5 games and then take a break because you're no longer optimally performing in Valorant matches. Might actually turn out that for some players, it's like they're doing great between 4 and 8, and they're actually games 1, 2, and 3. They're just like
Yeah.
their crosshair plays and all that kind of stuff is not very good, or in Overwatch or in Rocket League or whatever the game might be. It doesn't matter. But being able to find those patterns, there's some of the stuff that we're working on now, getting to the real cutting edge. That will be, we're looking at working with a large tech partner on this. That we're hopefully can release this part next year. Is the cameras that are on these monitors, for instance, actually see better in some models in infrared than they do even in visible, right? What you can then do is detect blood flow in people's faces. Now imagine where you can actually look at things like their biological stats when they're playing a game and how it's impacting their gameplay, right? And you tie the two things together, or specifically, and this is again another area we're working on right now, things like how they move a mouse, because how they move a mouse, left to right, right to left, forward, backward, all that, can be picked up and then correlated with their performance. That's the kind of analytics that is going to take it to the next level in the gameplay as we go forward with this thing. And that's why we're barely scratching the surface.
Yeah. No, and again, I look at the collegiate application, and I'll kind of dial it back to the K through 12 application. Um, Having this information, so let's look at it from a roster depth perspective. Again, if you are noticing, X trend going on mid game, that's now supported by data. Again, to make that coaching decision on the fly, to sub out X, for another player, doesn't matter what the title may be. Again, to me, it's a game changer. It really is. It's an opportunity for a high school coach that might not have more than themselves alone in that space, to make that call. So having that additional kind of point of reference to say, oh, you know what, this, we're not seeing the results that we want to here. I know that player Y on the bench can do this, is skilled in this particular area. Now let's make the sub and get that player in.
Well, and you just hit on another area that's not very often talked about, but I've seen it coming up a lot more recently, which is player engagement and curricular performance. So, meaning like people who get involved in these teams and on these programs tend to do better academically. They tend to show up more, especially even in the high school area, right? So now think about how many people actually might be on the team versus how many people game at that school, and how do you identify people who should be playing but maybe they don't think they're good enough or they didn't realize that they could be part of this thing or whatever. Well, AI can serve that as well. If you can get them to play a game and then analyze the data, you can say, hey, you know what, you should really come and try out for the team, because you might have like a great running back, to use the football analogy, and they never tried out because they're like, I'm not a very good runner. It's like, well, actually, no, you're a fantastic running back. You should be on the team, and we'll train that talent, right? And then the other part being, of course, where high schools really have a challenge, even much more so than the colleges and universities, is oftentimes the sponsor of the team isn't actually a coach. They're just the teacher who said, yeah,
Yeah,
I'll sponsor that club, right? So the
that's
team
exactly it.
lacks a coach, and
Mhm.
therefore they have to rely on themselves to be a coach, which means Now you've got people who are playing, but then are also like one of them is taking a leadership role to say, or they're trying to get everybody herded together like cats. So this is where being able to leverage tools to help them get better becomes critical, because they may not even have a coach to fall back on. So their coach may be the AI coach.
Yeah. And I think it's important as well too, because again, scholarships are real down at this industry. Again, colleges are,
Yes.
and we're going to see that in a couple of slides when we talk about the really this case application of the combine that we're talking about. If if a teacher is picking this up just as a stipend, as a kind of a club activity to get a little bit of pay, but using this kind of data to help elevate their students' gameplay, could almost make or break a scholarship opportunity for that particular individual. So again, it's an opportunity to utilize really the information that's available to you to put those students in that best position possible to succeed, to get an extra eye on him or her, as this is being, as these students are being evaluated. It's, again, the opportunities are really boundless with this.
Well, and when you get to the more on the combine there, I think we'll cover this a bit as well. But the flip side as well being, if you're a college coach and you're looking to recruit, say you got a couple of slots in your roster you want to fill to make out a well-rounded team, right? You don't want 5 duelists in Valorant. You want a mix of the right different players. Well, what are you gonna do? Watch 1,000 highlight reels trying to find the right player? No, you actually need data that you can then filter and say, give me somebody who's got these characteristics. Maybe I want somebody who's cross-trained in 2 different skills so I can use them as a utility player on my team, right? It's like that is part of what still needs to be built, right? And then when that exists, it makes it even easier for those high school students to be seen by the schools that are looking for them but can't find them because they're a needle in a haystack.
Absolutely right. And 2, 3, 4 years ago, I can't say that there was this level of demand for student performance and for these opportunities. It's there now. I mean, again, colleges are actively recruiting for exactly what you're talking about. So again, allowing for these students to have those tools and to help elevate their game, their skill set. To me, as a parent of 2 young children, to me it's I would have jumped at it in a heartbeat, to be 100% honest. It's, again, anything that can allow them to get that extra leg up is quite valuable.
Well, and I'll say, full transparency, and it's not nepotism, but I've got, twins, as you know. I've got twins who are both in high school, sophomores, and it's really interesting to watch my daughter just totally like blossom playing Valorant. She's become obsessed with the game, and has gotten quite good at it. My son as well, but then he actually started interning for us. Doing data labeling, like helping train the AI and like actually capturing, raw footage that can be used to train the AI as we're picking the next games that we're going to be training. And so like the opportunities exist at multiple levels for people to get involved, develop skills, but also understand how the machine works, so to speak.
Yeah. And perfect segue, because actually, this kind of digs into a little more, and then the next slide is probably a better segue.
Yep.
But again, for talent evaluation, scouting innovation, again, we're making data-driven player profiles, decisions based on data with this. We're decision efficiency, reaction metrics, performance indicators, all things that I know, Omnic and the programs that you work with, really kind of put out in a way that's, I'll say, very easy to analyze, very consumable from a, let's say a novice coach in some way. And I think that's the most important part, is that you're now making decisions based on more data rather than just what the game itself provides.
Yeah, and it's important to know which data is relevant to somebody at what stage in their journey, right? Because I sometimes describe it a bit like it's the cockpit of a 747. If you're a 747 pilot, it all makes sense. But if you're like, if you don't know how to fly a plane, or if you're a Cessna pilot, that's just a lot of
data.
switches and dials and screens and all the rest, right? At the core, it's still stick and rudder, but everything around that, like, good luck. So like when somebody's first starting, or to take an analogy that's maybe more direct, is golf, right? When you're first starting in golf, I teach archery for my kids' scouts troops. But in every one of those, there's like the first things you have to get right before you worry about anything else. Before you worry about the fine tuning, if your stance is terrible, if your grip is terrible, it doesn't matter what else you do. Get those right before you focus on the next thing, right? So it's like, yeah, there's 11 different mechanics to shooting a bow, but you need to focus on these two first. And when you get good at them, then we'll take on number three. And when you get on and so the same thing is true, I think, in like becoming a better player. And that's where providing the coaching and the rest to say, right now, focus on this. And here's the key insight. It's not about this like graduate level problem you need to solve. You're still working on like algebra.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And this is kind of where I was going to, with that other segue, really the academic opportunities that exist with this. So really from a curriculum integration opportunity, it's embedding real-time analytics into, to various programs, be it, esports management, data analytics. And that's a conversation we just had, Shubber, with our data science professor here at the college, about these academic opportunities, about building out an internship, potentially an academic track that speaks to the data side of our esports production degree here at the college, but also again sports marketing and sports business overall. Again, course topics of already live match data interpretation, predictive modeling, audience sentiment tracking. Again, kind of going back to that question earlier as well too. Audience tracking is really a key element to this. I know it's not something that you and I've talked about a lot, but it all plays into this in some way. Again, there's so many different possible applications of AI in this particular industry. That's surrounded by the stream that we put out there. It's all opportunity to build in academic programming, as it relates to it. And again, there's the interdisciplinary models, again, computer science, AI and data pipelines, business, sponsorship analytics, communication. We talked about with informing broadcasts, et cetera. So again, the opportunity, and again, that's just scratching the surface, Shubber, in terms of what we've already talked about.
Right. And then, as you're saying, the last one, the storytelling. Storytelling is the core of so many things. I mean, I've done this for decades in my business career. And, in fact, actually, I'm giving a talk in 3 days to a group of executives on storytelling and AI, because that's the core of it. So AI is a way to find something in the data, and then how it presents it to you that you can then turn around and give it out to people in a way that is engaging is the key. And so like, you talk about doing broadcasts, being able to query the AI. Hey, this just happened. What are some useful things I can get out of this? And then it can just give it back to you in plain English, right? Or what have you. And then you can relay that back as well. So there's a sea of information, and it's finding the things that are value hiding in that sea that are where AI can really be powerful.
And I think really the opportunity, again, I'll dial it back to the collegiate and the K through 12 level, using this, this data, this analysis, to inform the broadcast overall. Again, I grew up in a time when, ESPN SportsCenter was, was your sports fix for, for the day. That's how you learned about what happened. It's all the highlights in 30 minutes. And again, being able to use AI to create a similar approach for a high school program to launch a weekly show, and just pulling data sets, pulling highlights, having information at hand to talk that would normally require an entire team, a suite of experts behind the scenes, now can be done primarily through through this analysis, and again pulled to a few individuals to put out some kind of weekly or regular broadcast overall.
Mm-hmm. Looks like we have a question.
Yes. It's I understand GS. Yes, they do have a unified league for disabled players. Can you comment on how AI accounts, for those players? Shubber, you might have a little bit more experience with this, I think, overall. But I mean, clearly there's opportunity here for AI to, to provide assistance in a variety of ways. So I'll look at, players that may be hard of hearing or deaf in some way. Again, it might be able to provide opportunity, about the game in some way that could be provided to these players, in a different format. So again, you're turning the audio into the visual in some way, in a real time way. And we see this with transcription and closed captioning and whatnot. But this could also, lend to data also being shared in that way as well too. But are you aware of any other kind of instances where AI could, kind of assist this?
Well, so when I just think of like what our product does, it is independent of your primary faculty. So with the exception of somebody who might be blind, but then again, I struggle with the use case of them in esport, but I like that's my limited knowledge. Not saying it's not possible, but for somebody who's deaf, for instance, it doesn't change the way they see the data on the screen. It's still presented all visually, so they can interact with it just like any other player can. I think that it tends to be because it's just looking at the data that's generated, it's able to analyze it and present it back. And as long as it's able to be presented back in a way that the player can consume it, for lack of a better term, then it handicaps, disabilities, that sort of thing, don't necessarily become a limitation for being able to engage with AI when it comes to this. If there's specific forms of disabilities that you're thinking of, Mark, you can put in there, then I can certainly talk to it perhaps a bit more. But off the top of my head, no, I don't actually think that's a limitation for being able to engage with AI.
And kind of digging in this a little bit more here with really the opportunities for us to kind of serve as a data lab in some way. Again, and this is kind of what we're building towards here at Camden is really the experiential learning opportunities that go into it. So again, a campus-based esports analytics lab, students operate in real-time roles, again, match analysts, broadcast data integrators, performance strategists, again, trying to look at us as an opportunity to take this information, but to put it in a way that students can experience, manipulate, and really learn from it as well. And then integrate it into the competition in some way. So again, I know this is something that happens on the back end with you, but that back end needs to be programmed by somebody ultimately. I mean, there's human element that goes into it. So again, the real-time dashboards used during matches, post-match breakdowns for player improvement, opponent scouting. Again, this is kind of where that analyst, the analytics opportunities exist, I think, in the industry. But I know we've touched on that a couple of times already, Shubber.
Yeah, the other thing that, thinking back to the original, when we put out what this session was about, one of the areas we haven't really touched on was being able to use it in terms of actually planning, right? So using it for planning your next match. So one of the things that, again, I think about traditional sports and football, for instance, and drawing the plays, so, having the plays on board. So, okay, I want you to go around and do this and the rest. That sort of ability to then do the same kind of thing with maps and placements and say, okay, the strategy, when you're here, this is the angle line you want to have. This is the place you want to place your thing. Here's where you want to use your, ultimates or your special abilities, whatever it might be, depending on the game. That's actually another tool that can be used because both you can use it for planning, but then you can actually analyze what happened and compare the two and say, okay, what's the insight here? Now that's actually not the right strategy. Use this instead. So this is one of those. It's all about the data, the feedback loops you can build into the model that helps the coach get better and helps the team get better.
Yeah, and again, I always kind of wanted to see kind of this makerspace notion kind of happens. Or again, just imagine being in a lab-based environment where you're sitting on, oodles and oodles of data, just and again, just minds looking at it and just saying, here's what we see, here is where we can go. This is how this team is being constructed and maximized here again. So it really does provide that lab, opportunity that we really hadn't thought of before in this industry. I think it's, again, just sitting on this data is just, it's key. It really is. Again,
yeah.
and again, just seeing where these minds can bring this data and how it can further, again, team development, league development, academic development. I mean, all of those areas that we've touched on so far.
Yeah, well, and also think about what happens when a new game gets introduced to the esports, because
it will.
This is where esports is interesting, in that it differs so much from traditional sports, because football is football, soccer is soccer, baseball is baseball, right? There's, I mean, yeah, there's the American League and the National League, but other than the designated hitter rule, right? So there's not really that much difference, right? Whereas esports is games owned by publishers, and so you have this. At some point, it will be maybe a different rotation of games. Well, when those times occur, or if you're building a team, being able to identify people who are good at X, and based on a large statistical analysis of players across multiple games and the rest, you go, people who are really good at this particular FPS would also be good at this one.
Yeah.
So let me go recruit from this pool. You have to be able to go and look in that pool and find that data. And so being able to look at data across these things and find people who could actually turn out be really good going from one sport to another, so to speak. I mean, that's a whole other area.
Yeah, and we see it with Overwatch and Marvel Rivals. Again, similar.
Exactly.
Again, it's just, all right, how can we use these skills? But again, having this to inform those decisions is, I think, really a great application of it.
Yep.
And again, I kind of digging into this case application now, the Garden State Esports Collegiate Combine. Again, I'm not going to play the video, but that's there. There is a YouTube link that's out there. But just Google GSE College Combine, just kind of see the highlights. So this case specifically was in the state of New Jersey. We, as the college sector, really wanted to create an opportunity to directly scout students that were participating in Garden State Esports, the high school league. So working together with the leagues is a great collaboration opportunity. The 25 college and university representatives helped support this notion of identifying the all-stars, as I kind of term them. And there were 65 that were identified in the state of New Jersey. So these were the best of the best that were invited to a one-day esports showcase. This was hosted about a month ago at Brookdale Community College on February 7th. There were 30 colleges and universities present at this event. Coaches, scouts, academic representatives, and kind of the net result of this, before I kind of go into what happened that day, there were 181 scholarship offers at this event alone, which included 3 full rides to an institution. There were transfer pathway scholarships. So now we're talking about 2-year to 4-year school students that were being looked at as well too. So again, that was kind of something we didn't anticipate. And 12 esports production students were also offered scholarships. So again, it was really a great opportunity to have the best, under one roof, to be scouted by these schools, not only here in the state of New Jersey, but also nationally. We had schools from all around the country attending. We had Syracuse, St. Francis, again, a number of different institutions were in attendance. And what did this demonstrate? Well, it demonstrated that a centralized environment was needed for evaluating collegiate talent. That was an important part to this. It wasn't enough just to hear from a high school saying, oh, I have a great Valorant player, or I have a great Smash player, whatever it may be. Instead, we wanted to see this really in person and see how this person performed in real game situations. But also as the use of structured performance metrics. So we used the information that was gathered during that game. But again, it wasn't AI driven. So we didn't use AI in this sense. We just used the gameplay itself to help us make some of those decisions. Where was the missed opportunities? Well, this was the AI integration aspect. So from a pre-combine perspective, we missed out on the opportunity to provide data sets and player reports to the schools themselves. So the schools themselves went in not knowing much about these students at all. We knew they may be a Valorant player. We may know that they, were selected as an all-star by this league, but not a real reason as to why, as to how. And during the event, so the live tracking, we didn't see any player decision-making patterns. We might have seen an instance of a player making a decision, but not a pattern. We didn't see a trend in some way that occurred during those particular events. Again, we might have observed it, but we didn't have any data to really support it necessarily. And we didn't see any kind of team communication efficiency. Again, we knew the players communicated. And in this situation, the players didn't know each other. They didn't know what team they were going to be on until they showed up that day. So there wasn't an opportunity for them to kind of prepare for this going in. But we didn't capture really any data on it. Again, we saw the communication, we saw how players talked, but not in terms of how efficient it really was. And where does this kind of expand into? Again, we could have a standard package that goes out to each school prior to this player report. Again, this can be generated through AI in some way. Directly after those matches. Again, we have no data specifically about those matches other than what the game itself provides, which is typically just kind of on a very surface level. No real-time leaderboards or scouting dashboard in some way. And there's really no integration with the college recruiting pipeline. Again, it's just observation from that day. So I'll kind of pivot back to you, Shubber, in terms of, again, I know you're very much aware and supportive of this event. Where do you think the opportunity was missed in terms of what I presented here for that day, and where do you think we can go to enhance this kind of project, be it in Jersey or when another state or entity decides to do it themselves?
Yeah, so I think the biggest miss was that we connected so late last year that it was too late to get involved in this one, because a lot of the things you're listing here are exactly the kinds of things that we keep saying you need to get done, and we want to build for next year, right? So I think next year's slide, these will be executed opportunities of AI analytic integration, because every one of these is not only possible, but it's necessary to really make these kinds of events more useful to both the schools and to the students, right? To be able to put their best foot forward and really showcase where they're good and how they can work. One of the things that you hit on that I think would be another area is, again, you can now do, as we're doing, like transcription on voice chat and the rest, tying in voice comms for a team to transcribing that, to analyzing both kind of emotional intensity, but language and clarity of communications and the rest, and then tying that to team performance so that they can identify where were the weak spots, like, when one player called after another player, they didn't communicate clearly, that other player misunderstood, and then they got eliminated, or they missed the ball in a Rocket League competition, whatever the thing might be, right? So I think that's another area yet to be done. I don't know anybody who's doing that well or at all. Like, we're not doing it at all. But that's another area that could be developed for future expansion, which is really generating analysis of communications and all the stuff that goes with that, inter-team dynamics as well.
Yeah, and when we first came up with this idea of this collegiate combine, again, a lot of our inspiration came from the NFL combine. It was, let's put the best under one roof. Let's bring scouts in. Let's bring coaches in to try to understand those players better. But what we didn't have was isolated skill-based information, incorporated into this. And again, I know there's some programs out there that allows for that to happen. But I guess maybe, speak to that in terms of, if I'm looking for a particular player in Valorant, or if I know in 2 years my best player in Rocket League is going to be graduating, and I'm going to need to fill that void with what role they're currently doing. I guess, what does Omnic, what does AI, kind of provide for a coach or a scout?
That's exactly it. It starts with, if you have that roster of, like, and this is where, so we're really, really pleased that we partnered last year with Play Versus as well, right? Which is, in so many high schools across the country, is that if the students start building their own data repository while they're in high school of their gameplay, it's no different than their transcript of their grades, right? It's this thing that the schools can then use to look at and say, oh, this person we really get from my school because da da da. Well, now the scouts can look at, just like looking at your soccer statistics or your football playing when you were on the high school football team, whatever the thing, it's no different. It's actually having something you can send that's not just a highlight reel of, hey, look at my best game I've ever played in my life, because that's not actually what they need. What they need is, like, show me how you did over 3 years, what you trended, which, depending on the game, which agent, character, role, etc., you are particularly good at. Because what a team doesn't need, to use a football analogy again, is 12 quarterbacks, right? They need running backs, they need blockers, they need a
Yeah.
a kicker, they need all these different skills. So they need to build a thing. So if you've got somebody who's going to be leaving in 2 years, you want to be looking now for who am I going to be bringing in, and so you might identify 50 good candidates who are sophomores right now or juniors that come next year, you're 1 year away from that other person leaving, and now they're getting ready to apply for college. And you can reach out to them and say, hey, I've been following your career and what you're doing, and we think you'd be a really good candidate for our team. And here's what we want to talk to you about, right? So this is about professionalizing esports at college level in a whole new way, and that requires putting in the same kind of fabric that already exists in so many other sports. Which again, I go back to what I said at the very beginning of this call, and I know we're getting close to time, but there's no more data-driven sport than ours. And the irony being we're using so little of it relative to all the other sports.
No, absolutely, yes. And again, with scholarship opportunity that's now out there, that again, that didn't exist 2, 3, 4 years ago. It's I think in students' best interest to look at these opportunities to build out that digital portfolio. That not only, again, the highlight reel is a highlight reel, and again, we see it all. You see it on Instagram and everything else in between. Again, we see it all the time. But the reality of this, it's not who the player really is, and that's what we wanted. That's what we wanted to understand as we evaluate that talent coming to it.
Well, and I think the final point is there's a real lack of communication to the audience that needs to hear this, which is those high school students and their parents. That says, "Did you know how big esports is?" It doesn't. We're not saying, "Oh, your kid's going to become a full-time professional esports player when they graduate," but and they're going to go and join the Sentinels or whatever, right? Maybe, but that's like promising every kid who ever goes to college on a football scholarship they're going to be in the NFL, which is not true, right? But it's a way to get into college. It's a way to have something that they can build on for 4 years. That will develop a whole range of other skills and all these other things that are of value to a parent who's looking for what's that angle that's going to help my daughter or son get into school. And and then this becomes a thing that say, hey, esports is a great way for them to do it. And oh, by the way, they already love playing this stuff, right? You don't try to convince them to go and join a baseball club or football, whatever else. A huge percentage of these kids are already gamers. What we have to do is unlock that talent and get them to capture the data about their own gameplay so they can use it later to get into college.
Yep. And again, this is where some of these opportunities, again, from workforce development, a micro credential. Again, it's you see it with with some of the short-term credentials that I've listed here, but also, and again, I like this notion of refereeing. And there's so many different applications that AI can provide as it relates to esports, and career pathways as it relates to it, broadcast analytics especially. And again, I'm going to jump because I know we're at the end here. Where does innovation occur? And I put this on here 3 times purposely. broadcast. It's about the content. It's about making something consumable. This is what's going to bring us closer to that traditional sports roadmap that we've seen. But again, there's more research, innovation, and AI coaching models. Again, it's only going to get better the more that we begin to utilize it and manipulate it. Again, I think you touched on this a little while ago, the fan engagement part. Again, it's how do you turn that into really into an opportunity? I think ultimately what we want to do here at the college is help position colleges, really as thought leaders in this, in terms of esports intelligence. We're not trying to drive the industry. We're just trying to prepare students to enter into the industry as best as possible. And I think there's really, huge opportunity as we've kind of talked about today. And this is going to be my favorite. And this is going to be a surprise to you. So, I call it the future outlook. I call it the monkey ball era. Now, again, I go back to my Sega, my days of Sega Master System, my Genesis, and Super Monkey Ball. But it is a money ball era of collegiate esports. That's really what we're in today. Data it's central to recruitment. It's central to coaching, and it's central to player development. It really is. And it's about making sure that students really see these opportunities to learn about it, to support this industry as we go forward, and also the colleges, the teams themselves utilizing this data, because again, we really want to create the next generation of esports talent and analytics professionals. So, Shubber, any kind of closing words? I know we're kind of creeping up to that last minute here.
No, but if folks in the audience want to actually try out a coach, you can sign up for free and use it. We right now we support 7 of the leading games. So we've got Valorant, Fortnite, Overwatch, Rocket League, Marvel Rivals, Apex, and Madden. And we're adding more games. It takes about 10, 12 weeks to add a game. So we're adding more. If there's one in particular you're looking for, drop us a note.
Yeah.
But just go to forge.omnic.ai and create a free account, and then you can hook up your Twitch or you upload a VOD, and you'll actually see what it does, which is really cool. And we think that based on the fact that we've got over 40 colleges and universities using us for their teams, we've got 16,000 plus users now just in the last year and a half as we're scaling up. It's people definitely like to get better.
Yeah, and colleges want to be better as well too. That's I mean, again, it's what can we do? What can we utilize to maximize this opportunity?
Exactly.
For students. It's
I think there was an announcement Lindsay wanted us to make for Coffee Connect.
There it is.
2 things. I'll read one, you read the next. So
sure, go ahead.
So Esports Next 2026, which is powered by GameSquare, April 29th and 30th, alongside the Blast Premier's Rivals Tournament. Discounts available for members. Go to esports.ta.org/esportsnext.
And then join us at our upcoming virtual Coffee Connections networking event on April 1st. That's not an April Fool's joke, I promise you, at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Again, I proof in point here, Shubber and I, we made the connection here through a coffee connection. So again, these are powerful networking events. You don't know who you're going to interact with or where things are going to go. So again, we're excited to make that happen.
And I think we have 3 interns now from Camden at our company.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Again, and we've talked about opportunities, in expanding into the data science area, et cetera. Again, it really is. It's about making connections for our students to the industry and putting them in a position to succeed. So we're excited to continue this relationship as we go forward.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for joining our conversation.
Yeah, thank you everybody.